Okay, today I'm in Devon with Dax and Joe Oliver. Thanks very much for coming to me today to do this interview. I've been pestering you for a while. So, Joe and Dax Oliver, father and son team, and some might say the most photogenic on the racecourse. So how long have you been working together?
Well, about 5 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
6 years.
Yeah. Dax came over left the teaching in Abu Dhabi and came over and joined the company about 5 years ago.
So you're officially retired, Joe.
Officially retired, yeah.
Does he keep out of it, Dax?
Uh, well, not entirely, but it's been, yeah, no, it's all right. It works well. It works all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Joe, I've been around for a while, and you've been around for a longer time than me.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about your background? I understand you were a policeman at one point.
I was a policeman here for 3 months, and I packed that in because I wanted to become a professional cricketer. And I went for a week's trial and got sent home because wasn't quite good enough. I played minor counties with Devon, but wasn't good enough to be a full-time pro. On the day of the trial period, Greg Chappell turned up. He went on to captain Australia, and I went on to captain South Devon. Bit of a difference, but yeah, he made it, and I wasn't quite good enough. But yeah, good experience.
So your career with the police force was a little bit because you were a bit squeamish. Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't really fancy the post-mortem. I kept putting it off, and eventually they twigged. And when the Somerset trial came up, I just fell on the sword and resigned. I think they were pleased to see the back of me. Yeah.
So then you went to work in a bank.
Yeah, that was an absolute disaster. I went for my interview, and from the day one, the manager who interviewed me said, go into my office, sit in my office, and I sat in his chair, and it took me about 10 minutes to realise I was sat in his chair. And anyway, I lasted 18 months and got asked to resign. It was a disaster from the first day, really.
Now, you sort of skipped a bit in the police force. You had a bit of a faux pas with the boss's daughter.
Yeah, that was a disaster, yeah. The superintendent didn't like me. I didn't realise that on the first day I'd asked his daughter out, so he hated me. And that was a disaster, a complete disaster. Yeah.
So after those two disasters, bookmaking was a little bit more successful.
That was a disaster as well, because I started in '75, and until the buying and selling of pitches came in 1998, I made very little money.
So were you trying to do it for a living in that?
I was trying to do it for a living, yeah, but very unsuccessfully.
So, I mean, how hard was it to get in those days? Because the list was...
Well, I started betting in 1975 in the middle at Newton Abbot, and that was all right on bank holidays. But then I would go to places like Leicester and Nottingham and Haydock and bet in the second line and get picked off by the bookmakers in the front line, because if I didn't go above the price, above the normal price, I wouldn't take a bet, and I regularly I would lose 90% of the time.
So how did you manage to keep yourself afloat then?
Well, luckily, I'd bought some flats when I was young, and I lived off them. And also, I worked in my father's fish shop, but he did sack me a couple of times, so that was a bit of a tricky problem. I think by the time I was 19, I'd been sacked from 5 jobs. The police didn't make it as a cricketer, and the old man had sacked me 2 or 3 times.
I've got down here actually property tycoon.
No, I'm not a property tycoon.
You must have been living off something if
No,
you were.
I was living off
losing
my
at betting.
flats. No, when I was 17, my gran died and left me and my brother 800 quid. He went out and bought a motorbike, and I went out and bought a 3-bedroom house, which is in 3 flats. So that's when it started. But
Okay, so you said it was hard back in the day. I mean, for people that are not old enough to remember,
yeah.
how it used to work was there was a waiting list,
Oh,
and
yeah.
nobody would live long enough in some cases to actually be on it. So,
No.
and the buying and the ESL was a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, the
first of
buying and
all?
selling came in 1998, and that's when things improved, because for 23 years I'd really struggled, and the only thing that really kept me going was Exeter Dogs, because I started to bet without the favourite in the last couple of years, and I did all right with that. But prior to that, my bookmaking career was an absolute disaster.
Now, Exeter Dogs was a flapping track around the speedway track.
and I could make that pay because I used to bet straight, and the promoter one day said, I want one bookmaker to bet without, and I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose because I wasn't making any money betting straight. So when I bet without, that's when my luck changed, and I was quite successful betting without the favourite. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been in the position in 1998 to buy the first Cheltenham pitch. So really, it was all down to luck, because I was just going downhill fast, and I just by chance I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose, and that's basically what saved me. The betting without an Exeter Dogs.
The difference between you and a lot of people that bought pitches in 1998 was you'd done your apprenticeship in the really hard pitches to win at. So you weren't going in there.
Yeah, I absolutely got. I got so many hammerings. I was absolutely show shot. Really, I used to drive home from Haydock in Leicester in Nottingham, and I'd done like 1,500 quid, which back in 1975 was a lot of money. So I was show shot. Yeah.
So, but what I need to know is, you're Joe. That's Dax.
Yeah.
Who's Dick?
Well, no, I was Christian Richard, and when I went to get my licence, Frank Scadding said, "Well, when are you going to
say about why you called Joe as well?"
Oh yeah, well, I was
Yeah, that's true.
When
I
I
thought
was-
you were called Joe.
No, I'm not called Joe. That's a nickname. Yeah. When I was born, my mother wanted my brother was called Roger, and my mother wanted me to be called Richard. So the old man said, "No, I want to call him Joe." So from day 2, the old man called me Joe, and everybody else called me Joe, and it's stuck ever since.
But you're actually called Richard.
I'm actually Chris and Richard, yeah, but nobody knows that.
Well, they do now.
Everybody calls me Joe, amongst other things, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, no, I won't say it.
I've taken a lot of stick over the years, I can tell you.
Now, you talked about buying and selling, but before the buying and selling,
Yeah.
there was the extended supplementary list,
Yeah.
which meant that if you were on that waiting list,
Yeah,
even if you were number 50, if there was
Yeah.
a space, you could come
Yeah.
in.
yeah.
So I remember you weren't incredibly popular with the existing bookmakers in Tats when you came in, because you brought your bad habits like betting straight after the last race with
betting
you.
early, yeah.
Because
yeah.
and for anybody that don't remember, again, the bookmakers used to go and have a cup of tea between races and price
Yeah.
up with about 10 minutes to
And
go.
Eddie Baxter used to be the first one.
He did. Eddie
Avalon, he's a great guy. I
Avalon.
got on well with Eddie. He was one of the few that spoke to me. Yeah, Eddie was a good guy. He'd get up early. And Dave Pipe was all right, but the rest of them didn't really speak to me very much. But yeah, because we got up early. But sometimes we made horrendous mistakes, but sometimes we took good early money. But yeah, I remember that. We weren't very popular.
But when you did that, did you used to price up your races, or did you have a bit of a guess up?
No, I have a bit. It was a bit of a. I used to get an early tissue off Martin Hill's Mark Hill's father. He used
Angus,
to do
Angus,
Angus. Yeah. I used to get a tissue off him. Nana Cleffrey morning used to phone up. So I had a rough idea. So between my guesswork and Angus's tissue, that's how I did it.
Did he ever put in a moody price? And
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Sometimes Mark and his mates used to be there, but no, I got on right. Mark's a great bloke, and Angus, I always got on with him. Mark, it was all right. I get on well with Mark.
So would you have to turn up somewhere and hope there would be a place to bet?
Yeah, sometimes I used to. Yeah. Otherwise, I could bet in the Silvering, but sometimes at Newton Abbot I used to get in. Or the odd time I used to get in Tats. Yeah.
But in those days, I mean, if you made a rick with those early prices, you had quite a few professional punters lurking around, ready to snap the prices up.
Yeah, they were there. Yeah. It was interesting.
And you would have needed quite good staff, because even then you'd have been betting in the poorer pitches. So if you were leaving 5 to 2 up and they'd taken all the 9 to 4 in the front,
that's the one good thing that since 1975 I've always had good staff, and to this day we've got brilliant staff. It's like now at Cheltenham, there's 9 of us go, and they're all, well, there's 7 others. They're absolutely brilliant. I can't speak highly enough of them.
All right, Joe, all you've told us really is misery at the moment. So I'd like to speak to Dax, who I know is a much more cheerful. So no, yeah, you've told us that, Joe. He's a much more. So Dax, you Joe said earlier you were or still are a qualified teacher.
Yeah.
So what do you teach?
Oh, primary. So I've taught primary. So I was in Exeter. I taught year 3 and year 2 in Exeter for 5 years at St Sybil's School, which I really enjoyed. And I went over to Abu Dhabi and taught over there in a BSAC, British School like a Barat, for 4 years, and taught year 1 over there. So the little guys really. So I taught a bit of everything.
What, that be teaching expats or the locals?
Both, really, both, big mix. Yeah, so that was good.
So why did you decide to turn that in and come over and become a bookmaker? Because by the sound of it, it's a miserable existence.
Well, basically, I really enjoyed my time in Abu Dhabi, but it sort of got to a point where I kind of thought I was kind of sort of stick or twist, really. I was going to sort of I could easily have stayed forever, but I don't really like regretting things. And my only sort of thought was if I didn't come home and kind of give the racing a go, I might regret it, and I could be, and I thought as well, if I did come back, do the racing for 2 or 3 years, I can go back teaching if I really didn't enjoy it. So I kind of felt I was in quite a good position, really. And also I missed home, really, so yeah.
Right, so up until fairly recently, if you are Joe's son, so you could have helped out on the pitch and worked. Did you do that when you were a kid?
Yeah. One of my first memories is going to, I don't know where it was, some point to point somewhere, and I must have been a little toddler and watching horses jump the fence and being sort of thrilled by that. So that's some of my earliest memories. I remember I worked at Newton Abbot Dogs, which was, I think, my first sort of time working on track, which was quite an experience, really, because there was some
On the forecast, it was
some
terrible.
characters there, really. That was a bit of an eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
And I was to Clark.
Was that with a pencil?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those some nights we'd only take 50 quid a night on the forecast. It's ridiculous, isn't it? 8 races probably
There'd
going
only
to take
be
50 quid.
20 people there.
Pardon?
It'd be like
Yeah,
20
there'd only
people
be like
there.
20 Newton Dogs. There'd probably be 20 people there. Be lucky to take 50 quid on the night.
How many bookmakers? Brian Edwards back there, didn't he?
Brian Evans back there, Roger King back there,
Charlie.
Charlie the butcher from Teignmouth. I think there was 3 plus a forecast, wasn't
I think so.
there? Yeah.
So that would have been a good education for you.
Yeah.
To learn the Clark and learn how it all works, and
definitely.
struggling to take a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Put you in good stead and still
Yeah.
smile.
Met some charmers there.
Yeah. Some
Really nice people.
So because it's made such a big impression on you, was it something that you think was always in the back of your mind to ultimately do for a living?
Yeah, I think so. But I always wanted to have another option as well. And always wanted to travel, and I was always interested to live abroad. So, teaching was something that I think appealed to me, and it opened a load of doors. I actually lived in Japan when I was 21 for a few years, teaching English over there, and that was great. So I loved that. So I always knew that I wanted to go away again, and so that when the opportunity to go to Abu Dhabi came up, that was great. I had a brilliant time.
Okay, so we're going to talk about your travelling in the next bit.
Yeah.